Call the council meeting to order for June the 5th, 2007. Wade, would you please give a blessing?
Would you join me in prayer? Father, we want to lift up the council tonight. We pray that they will be able to make decisions that are best for all involved. And Father, we pray that it will go quickly for them and that they will come to consensus quickly. Father, we're mindful of Greensburg still, and we ask your blessing upon them. We're mindful of our friends and neighbors closer to home that were affected by the storms. We ask that people keep coming to help. And Father, if the city in any way can help, we ask that that be brought to their attention tonight. Father, we ask for your presence and guide them and direct them. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Consent agenda time.
Number 1, approve the minutes of the regular meeting of May 15, 2007. 2, approve minutes of the workshop, May 15, 2007. And 3, appropriation ordinances 05-2307 for $13,857.67 and 06-0507 for the amount of $23,066.51.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Thanks, John. Citizens' comments. Mr. Smith?
I've lived here 40 years. I haven't been to a council meeting ever, so here I am. I have 2 things I'd like to bring before the council. Number 1 has to do with the Smith Hill registered mosquito farm. We've got a water problem up there. Mel and Bob came up yesterday and we looked. I would probably let Mel explain a little bit more about what we talked about. He would probably be, I'm trying to find a way to get rid of that mud hole. And there's nowhere for that water to go. I proposed to them maybe digging a ditch or opening a ditch. There is no ditch on the north side. And at least draining part of it out where it would be easier to treat for mosquitoes. We throw those little donut things you can buy at Orchland's. We throw those in there, but I'm not sure how much good it does because it's such a large surface area. But at least if we could get most of it out closer to the road and maybe even on down east, it would be a whole lot easier to treat. And then hopefully if we could get it dry enough, we could haul some dirt in there, remove some dirt so that maybe that wouldn't happen again. I understand we've had an exorbitant amount of rain this year that we don't normally see, but anyway,
that's pretty much it. What we met with Dick, Bobby and I did, and we've got some ideas, and we've looked at it since, and we're going to shoot some elevations and see what we can do to try and get. There used to be more of a ditch there along the edge of the road, and I think we did some grading along there. We put that new set of tire poles in there, and we actually think part of he's getting more. He always had a water problem there before, but this probably contributed because the ditch in that one particular area, there's no back slope left on it, so we probably are contributing more water to it off of the road than before. But Dick thought that at some point or another, Bobby, that there was a ditch that went on to the east, so we'll see if we can't establish something at least help the problem. And if what's left there, they can get some material hauled in, they'll sure minimize it. We treat along the edge of the road, and but like I say, it's a big area. It is a big area for as far as getting a handle on the mosquitoes, but we are going to address it.
Okay. Are we ready for number 2 yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, as most of you know, my son Danny has been employed to teach here next year, and they're looking for a place to move in a modular type home, and having trouble finding lots that would be to their liking. They would like to be sort of on the edge of town and not downtown or in town. And a couple of weeks ago I was talking to Kevin, and he mentioned something about the city council had mentioned, or at least thought about, selling some of the ground that has been earmarked for industrial park, since that hasn't seemed to develop over the last, I don't know however long it's been. And Danny met with Mel today, and he was wondering if the council would be open for selling some ground for the purpose of, not for making money or anything, or putting in a hog farm or anything like that, but for the purpose of putting a house in. So Mel can give you some numbers on that.
Yeah. What he's interested in, you're familiar with the south end of that property. There used to be a house there.
Fifth Street.
Yeah, along Fifth Street, and there's a fence row right there. And the shed is still there, which we use for storage. His first preference would be to, the way this is surveyed, this property has an offset at each corner off of First Street, and it goes back 315 feet off the edge of the road. But the road is almost right at the right-of-way line. That's a very narrow right-of-way. We took all that in, that particular area there, and that's about 4¼ acres. His second choice would be to, if we weren't willing to go back that deep with the property, would be to encompass where the shed is now, all across the whole frontage there along Fifth Street. And that would be about 1½ acres. And, you know, like I say, we use that shed for storage. Now that we have it, we'd hate to get rid of it, but, you know, if you guys wanted to sell the property, we would really need to have that storage area replaced with another building. You know, it's kind of like, once you have something, you fill it up with stuff, and you hate to throw everything back out in the open again. So we have some equipment that we definitely don't use very often, but needs to be inside. So, and I'd shared with Danny, you know, the concern that when council first got this property, they wanted to keep the south end open, or at least part of it open, so that they could have access at some point if it would ever be an industrial site. So whether they, you know, the council would want to, you know, give the whole total frontage or leave a portion of that for a road in there at some point or another. But this is definitely where the shed is definitely the high part of the property, and that would be the most desirable place for a house naturally. But, you know, at some point or another, you know, that if a road was ever to go in there, the other end of it is lower, you know, that wouldn't be a desirable place for a road. It could be built up. So, but if you wanted to kind of look at that, if you're not familiar with that, talking about this area right here, or that area right there.
The only road that connects to that street would be Santa Fe. We go right to the east of you, right?
But it's not a through. That's not through there.
Right. I was just thinking of a good place to leave if you ever want to street through there. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they originally weren't going to talk about Santa Fe. We were just talking about that frontage we're talking about at some point or another. If something would go on out there, just say, well, we're going to put a road right here and run clear through to 8th Street would be what.
Even if you're going to put houses out there or sell it for housing, you still need to have probably access off of those streets. You still need a utility easement to get utilities to operate back there. So whatever form it is, you probably need a 100-foot wide area, similar to the other streets in town, to have an easement for street clean sewers and storm sewers, and then for the street and other access. So
I had spoken with Dennis Bowman, our engineer, in regard to, he had an aerial photograph of that area, and I just gave him a quick question. I said, if that were to ever be developed for housing, how would he propose to do that? And he felt like probably 2 north and south streets, you know, from 8th to 5th, and then probably 1 cross street in there. And he said, you know, you might get, if you split the whole thing up, you might get like 55 homes in that area. But, you know, I don't think the city's in a position to do any developing or anything like that, but if, you know, if the property's there, if the right person were to do that, you know, that might be a desirable thing. So it's just something to consider.
Well, if he goes with this back area, Gonna have to have a street in that access somewhere.
Where were you talking about?
If he goes with this area back here, there's no way off of Fifth Street to do that without crossing somebody's property. Correct?
This is all, yeah, for us to, if he would buy all that, we would have to get either easement off of somebody else or take part of that to get back in,
You're
right?
gonna have to put some kind of street in here if he does
Right,
this.
if this were, if he bought all this, that would landlock that south end, yes. Just sitting here thinking that very east side there, where that's notched out there, I don't know what the distance that. See this right here, that's not very wide.
Is it on that map?
That's only 79 feet there.
In that Livingston subdivision or no? Or you go north?
But it's not cut up in that track here. See, it's not split out like that.
Okay. What do you new map? It's outdated.
This doesn't say the same days in relation.
It's on down here. It's more like,
It's on the other side of this.
it's on the other side of that. That's the sizable place there. If it were ever go through, which is not platted.
Does that run along your the back of your property then,
I'm sorry.
Sizemore's line?
Mm-hmm.
You're-
Well,
It's all,
somewhere in those trees.
yeah, yeah.
Are you looking for a price and an offer tonight, or are you just
No.
asking?
We're just throwing this out before the council to consider. And they're in the process of selling their home, so they're not really ready to, to do anything right away. But by the time that the council comes up with a fair price and it's agreeable to him, then I'm sure that he'd probably be ready to do something. But no, I didn't expect that tonight, and neither does Danny, or he would have been here. So it's just kind of out for discussion or consideration.
How long have you owned that for that industrial park? When did you buy that?
A long time ago.
It's
Oh, it's
been-
been longer than that.
I'm 10 years.
10
Oh,
years?
okay, yes.
Linda Welch was
Linda
there.
Welch was married.
Yeah,
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 so not too long.
I think it was shortly after I started, and that would have been
yeah.
it was close to 10 years.
Well, I would think that you bought it for an industrial park, and nothing been done in 10 years, it's probably not gonna be an industrial park.
And I think if we could get a residential area out there, that would be just as good or better.
I think that'd be better than a blank piece of ground that the city's gotta maintain.
What is stored in the shed? I guess
We have what's called hot patch bead. It's our unit we use when we heat up our material, our mat, and when it's colder weather. We've got some equipment for the electric department, wire reels, and deal. We have our rope on when we pull new wire in and just be in and out of the weather. So
It won't be long, we'll be ready for a new building down at the power plant. And that wooden structure that,
yeah, we can get that sided. I can get some prices on getting that sided.
I don't know if I waste my money. Everybody else's.
sure we could find a place to put it next time.
The only thing is, I would say, is on this south end here, once you seal that up, it's gonna be difficult to get an access, and I don't know if Dan would be satisfied if we could work out a place for a road to go through. There, if that would be desirable for him, I think might be a concern.
So,
It's something we can look at, maybe.
Sure.
Dennis Bowman, like I say, he's thought that, if we have two roads, but, he'd get by with one. And like I say, nothing may ever happen out there, but, you kind of seal your fate as far as anything off of Fifth if you completely close it off. I can understand, if I was Danny, that's kind of what I'd want all the way across there too.
I would think if you're thinking about something like that, you put an easement in there for a street somewhere along there.
We can look and
City should keep
see
it
a place for that, and then just have it, an easement for a road, or like, you know, we could have the need to run some utilities up in there, or something could happen up at the other end, and how do we get, you know?
Well, somebody else might come along on the middle portion of the building house.
So if we lock up the south end, it's gonna
It's
kind of
gonna be
limit us.
tight.
How about if I just get with Dennis and we kind of look this over again and say, well, if we could put a road at this point, the width and everything we allow for, and other utilities, and I can get with Danny, or get with you,
Sure.
and get with Danny, and see if that still would be something that he would say, yeah, I could live with that type thing.
It's fine.
If the council wants, you know, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Jim?
It seemed to me that we talked about this a couple of months ago, about trying to have that be a residential place. So I think it's a good thing to do, and to kind of think of where the road should go, and so I don't think anybody's opposed to it.
Richard, would that road bother you guys?
A road where?
If we was to look at putting a road there either on the east side or the west side, that wouldn't bother your thinking on it, would it?
Wouldn't bother me. No, like Mel said, you know, if we get something drawn up and say, if we ever have to put a street in, this is where it's gonna go, then, you know, that would be
Well,
written in the contract.
I think the city would reserve that
Yours,
area
we
and
wouldn't
not sell
sell
it to
it.
you. I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be yours.
I see.
It wouldn't be sold to you. I mean, it would be,
Mm-hmm.
because we wouldn't want to have to go back and rebuy it and have to pay a humongous price for a street that we had already owned. So, I mean, I guess, we would reserve whatever area we needed for a street, or streets.
So if that, we can just do that then.
Yeah, okay.
We'll get back with that.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Is there any more citizen comment this evening? Administration now.
Before you start, I just wanted to, I don't know if any of you noticed, we've got a new entrance down there, new carpet, and that wood that at the base of those columns that come up the side of the building there had been redone. They were in really bad shape. The city had Vernon White and his crew do the carpeting, but Bill Norris and his crew donated their time and materials and did that woodwork for nothing down there. So we really appreciate that. That's been kind of a deteriorating thing, and I talked to him about it. He said, "I'll just do it for you." So I really appreciate that. So you might take a look at it on the way. The other thing here is today, John and myself and the mayor was here. We met with FEMA and Kansas Emergency Management. We had 7 or 8 people in here asking questions, filling out forms, and going out and looking. We had some damage the same time that Greensburg tornado hit, and they had called around and asked if we had any damage, and so because this was just declared a disaster, we're eligible for funding on this. So with equipment, time, and materials and everything, about $2,272 worth of damage on the information that we provided them, and we can get maybe about $1,700 back, plus some from another, the 10% from the state. I can't remember, but most of it was. So we'll be able to recover most of this. So it was quite an experience. I can understand part of what some people have gone through with a lot bigger disasters than we ever did. It's pretty overwhelming. So, but they talked like they would run this through, and we could have our money within 3 or 4 weeks, quite possibly. So, all right. The other thing, we'll move down to Greg Wright. He's here. If you recall, we had contacted him in regard to a rate study, and he has some information to present on that. So, Greg, if you want to.
We're going to do that before that.
We can do, you talk about the SG?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do the supplemental generation first if you prefer. before you, I handed out right before the meeting, we just got those in first part of the week, our supplemental generation contract for this year. So, there's been some changes on that, and Greg, he's probably the best qualified to present it.
Yeah, this is, this agreement here is the summer peaking power agreement from Midwest Energy. It's similar to the one you've had the last several years. We just recently got it, and it would go into effect for St. John in July 1 through the end of September. And it allows you to buy power above your base amount at a daily priced arrangement, the same one you've had. The only difference between this one and the previous ones is they've added a few features that may or may not apply to the city. Here they have, last year, several cities, St. John, we didn't do it because of at the time we were buying power from a third-party resources. Your load wasn't high enough, so we didn't need to do it, but we did it for several other cities. We brought power from different areas, different regions. This contract went ahead and kind of invented the wheel at the time, so this contract went ahead and incorporated the logistics and the methods of doing that. That change took place, and that was basically language on page 4, fourth paragraph down, page 2, that bottom half of the page basically covers that. That just allows us to do what we did last summer. And then the last thing they put in a paragraph in for, that allows us to buy a block of power. We'll be able to get a price a week ahead. And if we want to, we can lock in on the price. It gives us a chance to kind of hedge against the daily prices. We may or may not do that, but we'll certainly call and get prices on it. So basically it's the same agreement that covers your interruptible power above your fixed amount, your 2,250 kW. Needs to be executed, like I said, sometime between, really, I mean, tonight would be good, but if, before the 1st of July, and that allows us to do incremental power purchases this summer. Any questions?
Sure we do. Don't know what it
What?
is. Sure we do, but don't know what it is at this time.
Kevin, you're the electrician, you
Yeah.
pick this thing apart.
It's essentially, in summary, it's buying, what they're doing is they will quote their highest incremental cost power plus a fixed margin that's specified in this contract of $6 a megawatt hour. Essentially, we have the option then if we want to buy or generate at that point. And this contract was put in place in order to allow them to basically shoot us a price to avoid having to generate. If the price is higher than our cost to generate, then the city will generate. If it's not, they'll buy it. The stuff I talked about was that was pretty much the only options we had up until last year. Last year we thought, well, now we can either buy from them under this contract, generate, or buy from a third party if somebody else is selling cheaper. The language in here specifies if for some reason that third party power is cut or that supply goes away, what the provisions, they're the default supplier. So you never go in the dark, but then you would default to yet their highest price. So if you do that, then they have to, we put language in there that specifies what happens in the case of that supply going away. And again, the last deal was is we had asked, as a city, the group of cities, we had asked for the ability to not just wait till the daily, get the daily price. Let's see what, let's go out and see what it is for a whole week. If you buy a whole week, let's get a price there, then we'll have the option of either taking it or not. If we take it, then you are committed. If all of a sudden the market changes and it's no longer a good deal, then you're committed to buy it because they're going to buy it on our behalf. So it's just basically the same thing we've had last couple of years, with just a couple extra provisions that allow us to do a few more things.
Generally, that new thing,
What?
generally that new thing wouldn't occur unless we were unable to generate. Is that kind of what would cause us to do it?
To buy from somebody else?
Yeah, the expensive.
Well, yeah, because you're gonna definitely, what you're gonna do is if it's ever priced above your generation, you fire your generation up. But there's provisions in here that says if your generators drop offline, they'll still provide emergency type power for you. It's just at higher prices. We certainly want to be able to run when we have to. That's the idea. We want to try to buy under the cost of generation every time. That's kind of your goal, is to always be able to buy against. That's your backstop. And buying from them was just one option. We wanted to get other options, so create more opportunity. And they've allowed it to, but then they also have to have provisions to, if we're bringing it in from somewhere far away. Last year, several cities, like again, you guys didn't take advantage of it because you didn't need to, because that base contract was covering your load, but others went ahead and bought it from several different suppliers around the state and even up north of Kansas, and was able to buy under what the initial supply was. So like I said, it's an agreement that just basically they call supplemental power that you buy during the 12 hours a day, 6 days a week in the summer. The existing base contract doesn't cover. This piece does.
And you feel it would be important to do this as quickly as possible?
Yeah, because it's basically what this is doing is giving us a mechanism to buy if we choose. You may never buy anything under. I mean, most likely we will, because they certainly ought to be able to provide several hours of power cheaper than we can generate. But if not, you just don't have to buy it. There's no minimum take. This isn't this is just supplemental. They'll shoot us a price every day, or now once a week too. And if we want to take it, we'll take it. If we don't, we won't. We either generate or buy from somebody else. And the language is pretty much the same. Don's taking a look at the language. It's the same, except for those two sections that they added.
Right. Does our city attorney think he needs time?
Oh, we need to execute.
We're ready to execute
You
it.
looked it over.
Yeah.
You said-
We went through this whole thing, meetings and stuff. So.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for 6 months with Bill, so we always get
Do you
the
need a
agreement.
motion there, Ron?
Yes, please.
I move we adopt this contract.
I'll second it. It's an agreement. Is there any more discussion? Bobby, any more discussion?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Thank you, Greg.
We got next.
Now you've got to
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna,
Great study.
the other
Greg, you're
thing,
welcome to come up here and sit down if you would like.
well, I probably will on this one.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and get these handed out to everybody if we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got enough?
This is, this agreement here, or this rate study here we did was to look at all your utility system, your electric system, to see whether or not you're recovering enough revenue to meet the requirements of your cost. And this essentially is how we've done that. Now, what I'm going to propose is that we look this over just briefly today, and I will leave it with you because it's not requiring any action for today, because it's going to take, unless of course you want to, but I thought I'd explain it to you, and then we can think about it, and it'll probably be back in my recommendation, like outlined in the summary, is to maybe come back in the fall. I believe you probably need to make some changes by next winter, by the end of the year, would be my guess. That'd be a good idea to talk about it a little bit now. And I'll just walk through this book if that's okay, just real briefly, and then you can, like I said, the first section is the existing ordinance that you've had in place. It's been in place since 1984. You essentially have a customer charge. It's based, quite simply, a customer charge and an energy charge. And then you had what was called a fuel adjustment component of it. The customer charge and energy charge hasn't changed. It's been the same. You basically get a $5 a month for residential and $8 for commercial customers. Energy charge is 8.9 cents a kilowatt hour. And in that 8.9 cents, there's 3.1 cents for purchase power to cover your purchase power, which would include the power bought under that contract you just approved, as well as your base contract. And then the fuel adjustment, which has been applied since 2003. It's been on an ordinance for many, many years, but we just put it into play in 2003. So I thought I included that. That's the ordinance. That's what you've got now. Very much right in line with the other communities in this area. Quite frankly, very similar to the other ones. The next section might take a little bit longer to go through if you want to just do it on your own. It's basically your operating revenue, which is simply your electric sales, is in the first part. This whole packet here is all of your cost and revenue analysis of the utility system. And we broke it up into production, which is your power plant, and what it's called light distribution, which would be considered the wires or your distribution service, and then your general administration, which would be the office facility. We've included that. We went back to 2003 to 2006 actuals, and then projected forward the changes in cost and some of the percentages that means when we do those changes. So from that, we're able to see what kind of revenue is required in order to cover those costs. And these costs also include the transfers to the general fund, to the utility system, and those are outlined. I think I'll come back to that in a little bit, but those are towards the very last page there. It talks about transfers to the system. That's basically the utility assumed. The next section is basically revenue expense charts that show you where your expenses are, and they're taken from year to year, so you can see 2003, 2004, and it goes on. And then it also has a chart for the projected revenue or expenses, and then at the end of the section is the revenue. The expenses, if you look at the larger section, the blue section, that's your production cost, which would be includes mostly includes the purchase power contract and any cost of operating your power plant generation. So as you can see, that's a significant portion of the overall cost of the utility, and that's important to keep in mind. If you just note the significance of that, because that's also the part that's probably changing the most right now in this day and age. If you kind of look, you can kind of see it goes 2005 and 2006, it becomes a bigger part. That's essentially because the cost is going up. All of your wholesale contracts have energy, what's called the energy purchase or energy cost adjustment clauses on them as well, just like I mentioned with retail. Those have them, so they're passing through the higher cost. We all see higher energy costs on the gas pumps. We're seeing on the natural gas market of our homes. We're seeing it on the purchases to the city wholesale contracts, as well as any of the fuels used to generate the plants. Those are going up. So anyway, we see these. Those charts come from the previous section. Now the revenue. Just want to show you those. As you see, most of your revenue, pretty much all of it, comes from sales. You don't have a lot of other non-energy related type revenue sources. Your non-operating revenue we have down as like penalties, things like that is what that is. But if you go back to 2007 projected revenue and 08 revenue, just want to point out that you do see a little sliver in there, fuel. What that is that's the you've got some of that fuel on the previous chart, but what I've done is I've added, because as your wholesale cost goes up, you're able to pass some additional fuel through your energy cost adjustment on your retail bills. So that's generating additional revenue, if you will. I could have put it in that blue column, but I wanted to show you that there is additional fuel that's coming from what will be your pass-through mechanism that you put in the beginning of 2003. The fuel adjustment is the, I call it the FECA, which is fuel and energy cost adjustment. I went ahead and put that, and this is what it is. If you look at essentially the current ordinance has been on the books since 1984. It wasn't being applied and didn't start being applied until 2003. At one time, it was pretty much minimal impact because it's based on the average cost per kilowatt hour of purchase power at 3.1 cents, $31 a megawatt hour, and it was pretty much right around what your cost was. When as the cost has gone up, it became more significant, so we started applying it in 03. I was here, and when we talked about when we started putting it into play. I explain a little bit about it in that next section, but you can see if you look at I just went back to October 03, your average cost per kilowatt hour. That line across that chart that's the base fuel price, the 3.1 cents. Everything above that is what you would basically pass through. As you can see, those costs has gone up quite a bit. You were running just barely above that line. You're now quite a bit. Your average cost per kilowatt hour coming in is quite a bit higher. What that means is, if you turn to the next page, it shows you that's the amount of revenue that you've basically recovered on your utility bills, the difference from 2004 to 2007 through that cost adjustment. And again, that's why I put those separate slivers on those pie charts, because 08, 09, and 010 would also have that same kind of trend. So you see higher numbers coming off from the revenue adjustment. Now, this isn't unusual, other than it gets a little bit bigger. What it is you want to try to get your fuel adjustment base as close to your average actual cost as possible, so your adjustment's kind of minimal, so you don't get too big of a number. I mean, you could, so it's fine the way it is. You're recovering your cost, but it starts getting to be a bigger number, so your consumers sometimes see a bigger fuel adjustments, which you guys have all probably seen in your bills now and then, especially in the summer. You'll see a bigger number. That's what that's coming from. So if you sink more of those average costs into your base rate, then your fuel adjustment, your variance each month gets smaller. So right now this is still going off from 1984 numbers that became applied in '83. I'm sorry, in 2003. The last section here is really where the revenue requirement table. This is kind of a roll-up of all the data in there, and it basically shows you your operating revenue at the very top, and then your operating expenses, and then your operating income, which if you look across the operating income, you show positive operating income up until in 2010. You kind of go negative at that point, but not real significant. Then you look down here in the non-operating revenue, debt service, and then of course your transfers, as I mentioned, coming in there, which shows you the net margin to the utility, which you kind of want to look at. Is that shows you whether you're maintaining or depleting your utility fund reserve. So as you can see, you've had a couple of years you've showed a kind of a negative or positive. You're holding right about pretty steady, not building up, but you're depleting a little bit. In 07, 08, 09 on out, it looks to me that's pretty much when you're going to start this year on out, is where you're starting to start depleting your reserves to the point that you probably need to start at least thinking about making an adjustment on your rates, because you don't want that number to be negative. How much positive it is all depends on how quickly you want your utility reserve fund to grow. This number basically, I factored in the energy cost adjustment, so you would continue, like I mentioned, that's what that sliver on that pie was. But without it, you'll be under collecting. If you continue to transfer the same amount of the same budgeted items that you've done in the past. this is where you're kind of be under. So in this bottom block that's kind of shaded yellow is kind of a recommended number that you would need to be, additional revenue you'd be needing to recover in order to be able to basically stay even or add a little bit to the reserve, very little. That would be like in 2007, 105,000 or an 8%, approximately 8%. Would be what the number would need to be. So essentially, as you can see, that a lot of utilities right now are going through the same kind of deal where they're having to make some changes on their rates. And several cities, you guys are fortunate to the point that your contract's not expiring. I mean, that thing that we signed today is just an interim piece, but your long-term contract is still good for a few more years. That was negotiated partially when the territory was traded, sold to Midwest Energy, was able to extend that agreement, whatever. So that your contract is still in place. Other people, contract is expiring next year, and they're having to go out and secure new wholesale contracts where you're seeing some increases in your wholesale cost from pass-through costs. They're going to see some changes from a new holder agreement. But in your case, you're really not. But your costs have gone up over the last 20 plus years, and you need to have your rates aren't really covering your cost adequately. And it's going to start over the next couple of years. It probably needs to be an adjustment made. So I think what I wanted to do today was get this in your hands. Like I said, I don't want to necessarily, because there's several things you can do. You can just do a percentage increase. You can, but I've talked to Mel and Don, and we talked about you have a balance between customer charge or base kilowatt hour rate, or several things that can be done. What I'd like to do is see if anybody had any questions today, but plan on coming back in the fall with some of the recommendation as far as how the rates should be changed from that previous ordinance that's on that's attached to the book in order to meet your revenue requirements. And if that is a good plan, I thought it was important that we talk to the council today in order to give, so your consumers will have a chance to at least know that there may be some changes coming up. Because people like school districts and things like that, it's important for them to budget for, instead of just budgeting the same every year, they need to know the budget of maybe a 5 to 8% increase, possibly. Is there any questions on the? Like I said, I was going to leave these with you. We'll look it over, and then we'll have upload.
Where did you come up with the number for transfers for the future?
That's the numbers you guys.
We gave you that?
Yeah, these are all numbers that you guys. If you look back on the transfers, the numbers come from. If you look on the last page of this first, this one section of the legal page.
Well, no, I'm talking about the projection.
Oh, those are your projections.
That's what we want.
Yeah, yeah. Now you may want to decide you don't want to do that. That's got things like if you look, you've got transfer to the general fund. Those are the numbers you budgeted forward. Transfer to equipment reserve, surplus, and then transfer to Main Street program. Things like that come out of the utility. So, certainly something that you may want to think about if you want to change those kind of. Those are the numbers that you've forecasted out.
Some of these things that you suggested here in the summary,
Right.
these suggestions here, I assume those are things you discussed with Mel, or
Yeah.
he's gonna know what some of those options are.
Ye-
Like,
Yes. Yes.
for instance, like the demand rates feasible for commercial customers. You're saying that might be something we would look at possibly doing?
There's a couple things you need to consider when you do that. One, the cost of implementing those, like meters and things like that. You guys have 100 and some, what do you consider commercial customers, some of them aren't. But the demand charges on the utility. And the only reason I mention this is because what I've seen some of the supply offers that are being put out there for people that are renewing their contracts right now, demand charges are significant to the wholesale suppliers. Those people are having to do something, they're having to send a signal, they're getting that message sent to them, so they're having to, the people have a chance to control. So right now, that may not be something we would do. I think it'd be remiss to not look at it when we're looking at the rates.
So how long do we have to eliminate some of these transfers?
I think, whenever you guys, I believe you guys make those transfers, what? At the end of the year? So, I believe if if some of those aren't gonna be happening, that's a good place to look if you wanna modify those. But those are things that certainly significant portion, I think.
Most of it go there to the general fund.
The big chunk of it's in general fund,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. No, I don't think, I'm not, that's kind of one of the things, the benefits of the utility, yeah. Absolutely. This isn't a big number, by the way, it's not, it's very normal.
What's your experience on the other cities you're seeing, whether the Sterlings, the Larnards, what are their rates going to be looking at in 2008? How are you projecting that?
Well, there's a lot of people that are in the process of changing around here aren't changing their contracts until next year. So most of them aren't going to be changing their rates until like you would, because they don't know what their cost is going to be. And again, if you look back on that one chart, the significant part of it is that purchase of power. And to go ahead and establish a rate when we don't even know what the contract is yet was a little premature. So we're kind of waiting to see what kind of contract they're out for. Try to get new supply contracts right now.
But you represent some cities that are currently
Right.
07 have
Right.
their contracts renewed, and what are you seeing in those cities? So
most of them are all in the process right now of changing their rates to reflect their new wholesale contracts.
And how did that, can you give us an idea of what ballpark they are in a kilowatt hour? I mean, are they in the 10-cent range, or are they?
They're kind of all over the map, based on which part of the state they're in and what it is. But right now, you guys are currently right in the middle of the pack. You're not really high or really low. And some of the people that are changing theirs will be going higher because their supply contracts are going higher. But you guys are kind of needing to change as well.
So our current rates are
All right.
comparable to other cities?
Oh, very much so, yeah. But everybody's changing too, so.
And so you're saying even if we're looking at doing a new contract out here after 2010, really you can't even look ahead too far
That's correct. That's very
to
true.
be looking to see what that
The
might be.
people that are getting their contracts in 2008 are kind of, they don't know exactly what their contract, that's in the process right now. Probably right around the time that I was mentioning here, around January, December timeframe, they'll know what their cost is going to be, so they'll be able to go back in there and plug that new number in there and then be able to establish the rates. And they're going to have it changed in May of 08. You guys are in 010, so.
Their costs are very likely to be less.
Oh, no.
That's why I was thinking even now, if we were looking at doing something, if we could, but
Wait.
no, I'm saying even prepare for what it could be and
Well,
not make it.
Yeah, and that's true, except that's, you have to make some assumptions, and I think probably the days of establishing a rate and not touching it for 20 years are probably gone. Now, what I would, and I never say never, I never say that, oh, for sure, but my guess is that's the case, but they, if your contract was up in 08, I would recommend getting serious about it, but I still couldn't even tell you until a few months from now. You guys, I just think that to wait till 010 would, or even 09, because we need to probably do something, either that or unless you change the model here some way. But assuming that most of these things are, and we went through them pretty thoroughly, so if there's some things you want to change, we certainly can, but it's a small change would generate enough revenue to meet where you should be. Without it, you're going to start running a little bit.
Should we try to guess what it's gonna be in a few years and then do a graduated?
That's a good point, and I kind of have guessed on my forecast. That's why I forecasted this number. There's a couple of things, the assumptions that I made was I held your growth flat, right? So if you had a big industrial load or something coming in, things like that could change some of that, some new revenue sources. But essentially, just the general growth, you haven't shown a real steady, large, real significant growth, so I held that flat. I trended your purchase price based on actual numbers I went through there. And so we have to assume a little bit, like the contract you signed today, we don't know what the price is going to be this summer. There's two variables that have occurred. One, well, we have some pretty good history the last 3 or 4 years, but every year the market price of power changes a little bit, so we want to keep it as low as possible. That's why those changes that we put in that agreement will allow us to continue to manage it as low as possible. Two, the energy cost adjustment changes a little bit, so those things are variables that we don't know, so we have to assume what they're going to be. I tried to forecast those, capture them as well as I could. Now, the fuel adjustment, pretty much everything in here we can be pretty good at. I mean, unless you just flat out want to change it, but as far as your salaries and your things like that, we can be pretty good at. The biggest variable is the purchase power, which is also the biggest item. So that's why you have a fuel adjustment on that item. You don't have a fuel or some sort of adjustment on all of these other items, but that one is certainly variable. And like yourself, you didn't use it for a lot of times. A lot of cities have them, but everybody's pretty much moving to incorporating that right now because it's just almost impossible to guess. And people are just not willing to take the risk of fixing the price anymore. So they're going to pass it through to you. You guys are passing it through to your consumers. So I think with I guess the reason I'm suggesting we look at having something in place for 2008, because that's when several other cities are putting changes in place. So you'll be, like Don mentioned, you kind of in the middle back and you kind of stay there at that point in time. And also, we'll have a little bit better handle on that purchase power price from the summer, as well as the fuel adjustment that was changed less than a year ago. So we're just getting some good history on that. So the number this fall may be a little less than what the number I've got here. But I just didn't want I hate to be here today, I think, identifying that we need to make a change and then not bring it up to your consumers, let them have an opportunity to budget for it accordingly. If we come in lower than we anticipated in our wholesale power, that's great. The number will be reduced. But again, that does, if for some reason the wholesale price of power did go down, it does pass through as a negative. So it doesn't, you don't have to change it every year. It just lowers. It just hasn't been lower the last few years.
I don't anticipate it getting any lower to you.
No.
Only way we can do that is manage better down here on the transfers.
That's right. You're exactly right, Keith.
We would probably want to do a good job on that anyway in the progress.
Yeah. Or you could have a different rate of electricity for your rural customers, where you have 3 miles of line to supply 2 meters. Is that out of line?
No, it's not.
I mean,
It's that is not a, I
3
mean,
miles line, you've got maybe 3 meters.
yeah. Density of customers is always a big issue. Certainly the rural cooperatives deal with that a lot. They have a lower density than certain cities, and then smaller cities have smaller than Wichita, for instance. And that's why what's real important, and you really captured it very good, that's why I mentioned, instead of just, a lot of times it's tempting just to say, okay, we need a 5% or 6%, just tweak that 8.9% up accordingly, but that's not necessarily accurately directing your costs where you are. So that's why I'm saying we need to make sure with the changes in wholesale supply, it may be more, if the demand's impacting the city more, we need to make sure that the customers, the way the customers are using it, are compensated. So one group of customers really doesn't subsidize another. And that's kind of where the challenge comes in. What this does is, this, like I said, this is simply a revenue requirement. So you need to generate this much revenue. We know what your cost is. We know what your revenue needs to be. Now, let's make sure we direct it to the right places. And so those kind of situations need to be isolated. Customer charge, if $5 a meter doesn't cover the actual cost, then maybe it needs to be changed. And that's why I didn't want to
Just for your information too, since you still have some bonded indebtedness on the electrical system, you have a requirement to have a certain bottom line. So, you do have to maintain a certain bottom line, otherwise you'd be in default on your bonds. So it is important that you have I assume you have that bottom line figured in your own.
That's right. That's what that's what you have a transfer to that reserve, your WL reserve. That number's pretty solid. You can really move that one too much. Yeah, you can't. That's why we have to do something about it.
Are you having in mind that we may have a biodiesel plant and use a lot more electricity?
If you look through the model, you'll see that if an additional revenue source were to come in, that's good. If you can generate new margin, then that just basically, it either needs to be increasing revenue through higher price or more margin. And so if there were something like that coming in there, that'd be a nice deal. So that would change things as well. There's just several things you got going on. So that's why my recommendation is that we move. I plan on coming back in the fall with some specific recommendations. We'll know a few things about that. We'll know a little bit more about your wholesale supply, and then be able to make some specific recommendations that you guys can shoot all that, or what we can discuss and change and modify. And then with the idea that you can have something in place by sometime in early 08.
Because the cost of the power would go way up too.
Not necessarily.
Total cost.
What?
The total cost.
Total cost, but the margin, it's a good, industrial look, a good source by a lot of power at cheaper times, so the total cost goes up, but the margins from that kind of stuff, total revenue is pretty good. So what I'd like to recommend is to hang on to these, because what I'll do is in the fall, I'll come back and make the changes based on what we have in 07 actual with recommended changes, and you guys can decide how, if you want to act. Any other questions on this, or just right now? I mean, certainly feel free to call me after you look into it, Mill's got my number, and we can walk through it time. If not, like I said, I'll be back, I can come back in the fall. Anything else?
Thank you, Greg.
Next item I had was status on the south well. What that pertains to is that when we had that fuel leak at the power plant, we quit pumping that well just as a precautionary measure until the remediation's been done down there. And every year we're tested for nitrates in our water wells here that we supply water to the town. It's been a gradual trend. We've seen the nitrate level coming up. Even with this well inactive, we are still required to test it. And quite possibly because of if we weren't pumping it as before, the nitrate level did come up, and one of our tests indicated that we were above the allowable level of nitrates in our public water system. 10 parts per million is as high as what we can have without notification of the public that we would have high nitrates in the water. This went from, it's been a gradual trend. In 95 it was 6.3 and now it's up to 16. So our last test before this 16 was 9.3 or 9.5, somewhere around there. So what the state would have required had we been using this well and this limit gotten to this point is that we would have had to notify all of our customers that we had a high level of nitrate in the water. It's not a health issue for adults, but infants under 6 years old, it can be a real health issue. So that's why we would have to notify all of our customers, but because we weren't using the well, we didn't have to do that. I've gotten with Darrell Clark, Clark Well, and run this information by him, and he's working on maybe a plan of what we might be able to do to this well. Quite possibly, if we would get so we were using this well, we couldn't put it into our system without notifying our customers, but we may set up a way where we can run this well enough and see if the level would drop. You can treat this water to lower the level. Probably the most cost-effective way from the information I've been given is to drill a new well. Do some test drilling, hopefully find a site that nitrate level is back down to where we wouldn't have to do it. Some places have wells that are quite a bit lower and they can do mixing. They can mix a higher amount of nitrate water with this other and average it out, and it still be a usable water without having to treat it or even notify your customers. So right now, like I say, we're working with Darrell Clark and hopefully we can come up with a plan. Don't know if it'd be a new well or not, but I just wanted to inform you of that where we're at on that at this time. Greensburg trees, in your packet was some information on trees for Greensburg. Barry Reagan brought this in. Being a tree city, as you can see, they were encouraging tree cities to buy at least one tree if they were able to be planted. These will be a sizable tree, $200 to $250 tree, just to help out down there on getting the city with some trees again. So I didn't know if you guys wanted to do something on that or not.
That's funny.
On that, back to that well a little bit, have you had them other 2 wells tested?
We have all of our wells.
What's the nitrates on the other 2 wells?
Oh, they're in the 9s usually.
They're in the 9s?
Yeah.
And you say 10?
10 is the maximum. We've had them, they're just gradually getting higher and higher. Yeah. So at some point or another, and I've talked to several different people on this in the water, and they've said that, you may get into a flume of where there's nitrate and it may just hold steady just like that. It may never creep up past that 10. This is a tremendous spike, and most everyone I talked to said probably because we weren't pumping that well and there's more of a concentration in there. So I can't argue that point. And like I said, one idea was to maybe set up a way that we've got that overhang down there where we fill trucks, and maybe set up something where we could basically pump water for a while, see if it would retest and see if it dropped down. But like I said, Darrell Clark says he's seen this in a lot of cities, and it's a growing problem. And it's just like I say, we're seeing all over Wells Creek.
Thank you, man.
Yep. So I don't know if you guys want to buy a tree for Greensburg.
Yeah, out of the general fund or something?
Take it out of parks.
Yeah, take it out of parks.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with buying one tree. That's all we're asking.
I had an opportunity to talk to Tommy Dell. He said he had some cedar trees out there, too big for Christmas trees. He'd be happy to give to the city if they wanted to use a spade and send them to Greensburg.
Well, that'd be good.
But I would I'd rather see maybe sending 2 trees, furnishing the trees, and paying for the spade,
Yeah.
than I would just giving $250 to somebody to do whatever with.
Motion, please.
Well, that might be a better motion there, is to put $250 for a tree spade.
I don't know how much tree spade is, I really don't know. I don't have any idea.
Chances are this guy's gonna come in though with a plan, he's gonna have certain kind of trees he's planting, certain places. In the forestry. Yeah. I don't know, it's,
I doubt if they want cedar.
I was gonna
cedar
say,
trees.
probably not where they're planting, or what they're planting.
I just threw it out there.
Yeah.
And we can call and ask him too.
Is it necessary to do that this right now, or could we do it?
Bill's
at
got
our next
authority
meeting?
over him if you wanted, you can just give him a direction, I mean, Bill has a $200 authority.
Yeah, I could have bought this, but I wanted you to get your input on this, so. And I think, I mentioned Barry about what Tony said about that tree spade. And as far as if the city wants to buy a tree, that's up to you guys.
I'm sure they're a little ways down the road.
I would say it's awful early to do that, really.
Yeah.
They gotta be figuring out what they're gonna do with the highway again.
Well, like I say, I think they're requesting people to.
Trying to get plans.
Probably
Yeah,
trying to
like I
see
say, if we say
what-
we're gonna buy them a tree, then
Yeah.
at the time they get ready to plant a tree, then
They'll have it bought or have the money to buy it. But Mel can also talk to him and tell him that those cedar trees are available.
I think probably the best thing
But
to just go ahead and, I would visit with him about Barry, and he can make contact on the tree spade, the
Yeah.
other trees, and then
Yeah.
if it's the best thing to do, just go ahead and buy a tree, we'll just buy a tree.
Okay. And just,
North Main lots. Also in your packet, we had a letter from Linda Lyon. And I guess the main reason I asked him to write this was, I told him, 6 months was just a general number that, we had hoped something could happen as far as taking action, having something built up there, but as he explained in his letter here, due to the Greensburg disaster, the time it's going to take to get the modular home that he would want up there is probably going to take a little bit longer, but he definitely would like to go ahead and have the lots, and then have the title over, deeded over to him, and then that way he can proceed with his cleanup, and he wants to, take some trees out, get rid of that foundation and whatnot. So he would like to go ahead and have it so he can start working on the property.
You still probably shouldn't do that, should you? I mean, we want a guaranteed house there, right?
Well, he's saying that it's going to be here, but it's not going to be within 6 months.
Okay, I'd extend it to a year.
I mean, if I was in his place, I wouldn't want to do a bunch of work on the property unless it was in my name. So I think it's kind of a two-edged deal. So,
Yeah.
so Don, is there some way we can,
Well, you tell me, all we have to do is draft the deed, so you tell me where or when.
But on the other hand, don't you, when you draw up the deed, it clears the city from any responsibility too?
Well, we just generally the city just quick claims the deed, we don't want any title or anything, just quick claim the property to them, and then if there's any title work, then it's up to them.
I guess what I'm asking, if we sign that over to him in a year from now, he don't want to build a house, he owns a piece of property.
Gansby's broke. Once you deed it, it's deed.
No, I don't think that's very smart on city part.
Yeah, I'd rather hold on to it till there's a house there. And it's a nice corner lot. If he's not gonna build on it for the next year and a half or whatever he wants, time. I mean, it's his reservation. I mean, his name's all over it for a year. No one's gonna deal with it if he writes the deal up.
You're okay with him to go in there, do the work, be working on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he, if
Well,
you're,
he-
if we were in his shoes, would you want to spend all that money up there and then not be able to build a house on there for whatever reason?
But also too, can't Don write up a contract saying that if the house is not gonna be built on here,
It's deeded back.
it's
yeah.
deeded back to the city?
Yeah.
Can that not be done?
Do that.
What would it amount to is he got a 3 lot, he doesn't build up to a year, and he sells the lot for $2,000. That's the point I'm trying to.
See, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Leave it till there's a house there, in our name. We're being kind, I think.
Correct.
Danny Smith
A
might.
lot can change.
Danny Smith might be ready to build out in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
A lot can change and, well, look what happened overnight.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't want to discourage you not to do it.
No, that's right, me neither.
Also, I don't think we need to give a piece of property away to St. John and somebody don't build a house and we
And
lose the whole deal.
It's his and he sells the lot, right?
Okay.
But the only reason he's asking for this is because he wants to start working on the property. Get it cleaned up, get it ready to go, so when the house is available,
Well,
pour a
does,
foundation, there's a house rather than having that.
does he have some sort of an option?
I mean, you can give him an option on it. I mean, you can give him first option for 6 months or a year, whatever you want, but that's just, I mean, it's.
And how would protect him, wouldn't it, if he had an option?
Well, if he had an option, I mean, if he exercises it, if he doesn't exercise it,
Right.
then it goes back to us. I mean, you can do an option on it.
Would that be, I mean, would that be reassuring to you if you were gonna do the work, find the property, and it was gonna be yours? If you had an
Well,
option?
The thing about this, if he's gonna do the work on it, he doesn't put a house on it, he knows up front, he's lost the
That's right.
investment.
Yeah, but he's thinking about if he does the work on it and
But that
something
protects him,
happens.
I mean, he's
The
got,
option
he's
would
got it for
protect
a
him.
year.
If he's got an I mean, if he does work on it, then he'll have, and if he's got time and money to place in, if he doesn't exercise the option, then it's his
Right.
choice.
But it would protect him about us doing something to
Yeah,
take it away from him.
sure.
I don't even see a problem with a year and a half.
I don't either, Kevin.
And that's not a reason to plan for a house.
If it's a time factor he's worried about, I don't see a problem there at all. The only thing I would be concerned about is taking the lot and deciding you don't want to build a house and say, well, I've got this lot free and clear, I'll just sell it.
Right.
And that's not what we can give it to him
Yeah, just,
Do we
if
have
we
to
still
do
own it,
something?
and he gets hurt when he's working on it, or something goes on over liable to him.
There's a lot you always have excluded. I mean, it'd be cleaner if you just sold it to him. I mean, just sell it to him for a number, and that way, if he does something on it, fine. If he doesn't, then you're at least recovering some costs the city has. You know. I mean, if you're worried about him selling it for $2,000 or $3,000, sell it to him for $2,000 or $3,000.
Well, I guess I'm sitting here thinking the same thing, I mean, when Dick was here talking about Danny wanting this other, this other lot, you know, I don't know, how are we setting a precedent, I mean, you know, we're giving this lot away, but we're gonna charge for this one, and, I mean, I don't know. We talked about setting up that whole area out there as, you know, 3 lots if you'll come and build a home in St. John. We never did get any farther on that project, but, you know,
Well,
we can't
I
hardly
think-
turn around and do that.
I think you can do that, but you have certain infrastructure you gotta factor into it. I mean, you've got streets, you've got guttering,
Right.
you've got water lines, you've got sewer lines.
Right.
And so to just to give lots away without recovering your overhead. I mean, I haven't done a call, I mean, I haven't talked to anybody recently, but it used to be like if you put street curb in and do the sewers and everything, it's about $225 a running foot about 10 years ago. Now, I don't know what it is now, but it's probably gonna be $300 a running foot for a street and the water lines and the fire lines and the sewers and all that. I mean, it's not cheap to put in that kind of development. And, you know, you just can't give lots away when you've got that, unless you set it up with specials and they pay those special taxes over a period of time. And that'd be the only way I would give them away, would be some kind of special assessment back on them and they pay taxes on it.
I talked to Vince a little bit about that out there. You know, just to do a preliminary design of where your roads would be, water lines, everything out there for that acreage out there. You're looking at a minimum of $18,000 up to maybe $30,000, just so, you know, everything will work out there. He's done a similar project in Lyons, and I can't remember, Brad bought another town, but, and then, you know, to put the infrastructure in and everything, I mean, it's a lot of money. So, you know, it may sound good, yeah, we got free lots, but I mean, the minimum you have to do is have a study done of what you want done out there to give them a free lot, and then, like I say, you make it one taker, and then, man, we need a road out here and water and sewer for, you know, for enough to handle a lot more, and it could get real expensive real quick.
Well, that could be wrong, but like Ellsworth, some of those towns that have done that, they did not have the infrastructure there to begin with, did they? I mean, I don't.
So, but who paid for it? I
Do you
mean,
remember?
Typically, you have a
Jim, how that
developer
worked?
pay for that and they recover that cost over
Yeah.
in the lot price, and they recover that cost through special taxes that the town puts in there. But, you know, specials on a project like that would be pretty tremendous, even if you put them on a 20-year plan.
I guess, Becky, like what you were saying, you know, we bought that lot up there with the specific idea, the King lot up there, I think. The specific idea was to give it away for someone who wanted to build a house. That was the whole idea. That out there, you know, was quote for the industrial site. And, you know, if we want to go far with that, it's going to take a lot more than saying, here's a lot here. I mean, everything's there basically, other than, you know, some cleanup. We've got the electric water streets, everything's there, so. I mean, there's other lots around town that, you know, if the city could get them at a reasonable price, and yeah, you could turn around and give them away and not have to spend any money on the infrastructure. You know, if you think that's an attractive deal for people to say, we've got a free lot for, you know, for building a house.
Yeah, I mean, that Linden line deal, I mean, the house came right out of there. I don't know what kind of work he's going to do, but.
Well, he wants to knock the sheds and the trees, and he wants to redo the sidewalk up there, and there's just things he could be doing in his mind in preparation for when he can get his house. And I understand the concern, you know.
Well, tell him that, bring us the date that he's gonna get his house, and then that's how much time to give him. That's his. What more do you want to do?
Does he have a signed contract on a house?
I'm not aware.
I mean, if he get at least an option on a house or get a
Yeah.
proposed contract.
And that's certainly how those other towns do it. They bring in a contract for
You have to have, yeah.
for the,
So that's done.
Okay, well,
I know they had it.
if nothing else, I can try to find out from some of the cities how
I don't know whether I still have mine or not. Do you still have your stuff? I don't guess I mean, how's Danny getting a modular house in possibly 2 months' time? I
I don't know where he's getting it from, what company.
don't know.
So what do we tell him?
I think that at the least we could tell him he's got more time if he needs.
yeah, time, time, and we still want to do a house there. We don't want to lose the lot. Build a house in the works.
So when he has a date for his house to be delivered, once he has something
Yeah,
in writing, and bring it to us.
yeah. Proof that he's made his down payment or whatever.
Well, I guess just visit with him and see how he feels about it. I mean, if he's willing to
I can
be okay with us, you know, holding it for a certain amount of time for him, and him going ahead and working on that.
I don't think he's comfortable about doing work on it, you know, without knowing.
We have no reason for him to
No,
not
I agree
wanting
with
to
that.
do the house.
Yeah.
I mean,
But Don, can you not draw up a contract saying that
We can do it first option.
he's welcome to go in there and work on whatever he wants to, but if he gets hurt, the city's not liable for it?
I mean,
Well, yeah, he's not paying.
What?
He's not paying.
Cut down
I can walk across the river.
Okay.
yeah, bring it to him.
Okay.
Just kind of an update. Bobby and I had looked at some drainage problems we have here in town, and we went out and looked at the big ditch and met with some property owners. Talked to the engineers again. We've got kind of a plan that we're gonna see if it'll work out there. I've got some prices on ditch liners and, you know, this is something that was done in Salina. This is not, we've got a lot steeper area out there than what that is, and may or may not work, but, you know, we've got just rough estimates from anywhere from doing something like that from 633,000, you know, on up, so, you know, almost about a million, so, but Bobby had a good idea, and I ran it by the engineer, and they may have to come out and do some field work to see if it'll work, but we're talking about just basically doing some dirt work and restabilizing the ditch out there, and, so, but that's just a picture of them, so I haven't heard back from them, Bobby, and we'll go from there. That's really all I had. Guess I didn't-
So any questions for Mel this evening? Thank you, Mel. Administration, Jonna. Is there any questions for Jonna?
Actually, I did have something, I don't know which one of you is for, but I get that lead news email from whoever his name is. And there was a piece in there about the SEMA training. Do you get that email?
I did get it. To be honest with you, I haven't read through
And
it.
it said now, it said the question was, is the NIMS, National Incident Management System, training required of chief elected and or appointed officials? And it says, yes, all elected and or appointed officials directly involved in emergency operations should successfully complete this course. And it's online.
That's
And it
what
may be
Jason,
what Jason's
Jason had
talking
talked
about.
about that night.
Okay.
Okay.
And so I didn't know whether that was something that eventually, if we get this plan drawn up, that will, I went in, I mean, it's kind of like a little training. You do so much reading and then you take a test and you have to pass the test with a certain score, you retake it or whatever. So I got this right before I went on vacation and I didn't really go back and look at it, but.
I bet that's what Jason was talking about.
But I'm assuming from that, we would all be required to do it, from what that's saying. So,
I can check and get
if you want to keep this, also
Yeah.
got an email.
Okay.
I mean, it looked to me like probably just some good
Yes.
information.
Sure.
You really ought to know, but.
Right. That and whoever Jason appoints.
Yeah.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, is there any questions for John this evening?
One other thing, you were talking about redoing, I noticed the carpet, I mean, it does look nice down there. One of my, this is a petty little thing, but is to walk up and have the door plastered with all these pieces of paper. And I think I talked one other time about if there was some way we could get a bulletin board or something, put it somewhere, but I don't know where we would put all that people can see it.
Yeah, because it's visible from the outside.
But it just would be nice to get it off the front door of the city office. I don't know if there was some way we could.
We have a bulletin board inside, but it's covered with other stuff. you
How
know,
expensive are those that, you could actually attach to the outside or that would, you'd have to get in it? You'd have to.
Is
Oh,
there
glass.
already, is there already bulletin board that builds on the outside?
Yeah, but what she's talking about, something that opens up that's protected.
It would
and
be
glass.
protected. I mean, I don't know, but.
We could check into it. see how much
If
money
we,
it costs.
if we had a place to put it out front on the building, I
Yeah.
could probably build one out of treated wood. That way it wouldn't rot or anything like that.
I mean, it is nice because people can read them, but
Sure.
don't necessarily have to come inside, but.
Yeah, if they could find a place to put it, well, I'd see if I couldn't build one of them.
Thank you. Is there any more questions for John? Thank you, John. Fire Department, Leonard.
With the help of Mac, we kind of got on the internet and looking for a backup truck. And this just give you an idea. These are all different, probably an older dated truck would run. Mel or Jill, would you like to explain to the council what you discussed today on, maybe FEMA, cover a little potential cost?
Yeah, I think that was out of was that out of was our cost or not?
Yeah.
Leonard has to do his own. You have to do your own then, Leonard, on that, so. But FEMA would stick behind the fire truck, send some money to help
Right.
For the repair.
Yeah.
John brought that up when we had these guys here and indicated that would be a good possibility that we could get repairs covered.
Oh, the repair
Yeah, not
the
buying
existing truck.
Yeah, but what he basically said is if you thought that it was time to update or whatever, once you got the check, you could use that towards
Another
a different
truck.
truck. They gave us a contact person, they were electrical people, they weren't doing any other stuff than that. So it's a matter of now getting hold of the right person to find out just what we need to do for that.
And they said we need a copy of your estimates on the repair. You got some written estimates from.
Dave West was supposed to send one of them here.
Okay.
Dunes just called me and give me a rough estimate. I'll just have to call them and see if they'll put a print out.
Yeah, but I think they need a pretty detailed estimate, so that you have everything
Yeah.
broke down.
Is that gas or gas?
Gas.
Gas engine?
Yeah, it's gas.
So would any of these local mechanics be able to
It's-
rebuild a
it's
gas engine?
It's a specialized engine in that truck. That's what the problem is, finding another one and rebuilding it because it's so outdated. It was especially made for that kind of industrial truck. Because it has to be tied in with that transmission to run the pump so everything works in order.
And there probably are no types of grants or things like that when you're buying used.
Not that I'm aware of.
But the only, like they said, the only option you have with FEMA is because we was taking it out of town due to the fact we didn't know which way the tornado was going to come on into St. John.
What year was that, man? 67?
67. And we've had a lot of trouble with electrical stuff and everything on it, and you just can't find parts for it anymore. But these are just, different types of trucks. I just let you see the price range and, that year range, maybe we can find something for a backup. The one at Elkhart was really the one that, because all your controls are up on top, or if you're in a fire, the guy running the truck can see all of these men on both sides and see what's taking place. And then if you got, got a house on fire, you got a house over here and a house over here,
You know, it's kind of nice, you know, because when you start fighting one house pretty hard, it's gonna take virtually all your hoses, or you can hook up another one, you know, maybe save that other house on the other side. And if we would have a truck go down, it's kind of nice, you know, to know that you have a backup truck. Because we seem to have an real interest in personnel going on the fire department, you know, so I'd like to keep, because there for a while, I was kind of down on.
Well, if you get those estimates for us, Leonard, that would be great.
So what would FEMA give toward that? I mean, is it a percent? Or do you
They
know?
indicated that they would quite possibly cover it. In other words, he gave us
Actually,
a
100%.
$9,000.
I'm sorry to interrupt, was that FEMA or was that the state disaster folks? Do you remember?
They were, I thought they were indicating that FEMA was who we
Yeah,
needed to
was
talk
FEMA.
to.
Yeah, okay, that's
The
what that
the
one
state
was.
people were telling us what FEMA would, in all probability,
Did you
would
get a
do.
card from, did you get a card from?
They
that?
just gave me, they wrote it
I
plain
can't
down.
remember any of the names.
But we'd be talking possibly 100% then.
The repair.
Yes, of the repair, yes.
That we applied for a new truck.
Most of the bids, they were giving me fast bids to present to council, and it was like $9,500 on and on that. That's, depends on what, you know, time to get another engine found, what it's gonna take to do it, and then you got all your other setup, you know, to go with it. So, I mean, the person could take that money and put it on another truck, then you wouldn't have, if you had 10,000 to go on another one.
10,000 toward that would be.
I think it'd be best if we make our contact and reaffirm what we were told, and before we, you know, trouble these other people about giving us a detailed estimate, because they may say, oh, no.
No. What does the FEMA abbreviation stand for again?
Federal Emergency
Management Agency.
And do we qualify for any of that? I mean,
Been declared to
We
that
were
disaster.
We
declared.
have?
Yes, Africans.
And I
That's
asked
what they was here
about
for
the,
today.
Yeah.
but as the city of St. John, I really feel guilty about taking that money. I don't, I
They
guess.
contacted us, we didn't contact them, they
Yeah,
We kind of
contacted
had that
us.
same attitude when they were calling
Yeah,
asking for figures.
And if we don't take that money doesn't go to anyone else.
Yeah, we're not taking it from
No,
somebody
yeah,
else.
we're not taking it from someone else, we felt the same way too.
and I talked to them guys, and I said, you know, where were you on all these other storms? And, you know, we've had a lot more poles down and stuff, and they said, basically, since this was just declared a disaster area, anything associated during this time frame qualifies, and they were very clear that you need to use this. You know, the state is encouraging us to take advantage of that. So,
But see, if that tornado would have hit St. John, Stafford would have rolled their trucks here to help us. And we
Right.
did the same for them and Maxville both.
That's right.
So,
I did check on the if we could qualify for any funding on the big ditch.
I was gonna say, is that?
No,
That's
we had a, you know, washout along the edge of the road, and, you know, it's about the same thing we've ever always done, but they said they would not take on the project.
That's, okay.
Is there any questions for Leonard this evening?
Is it 3208 cap? A good one? Throw one.
there's a throwaway, but I mean, on a fire truck, it'd be, you know, because they don't run, they're not being driven over the road. But I'm just like Bobby, I don't really think I'd want 3208 cat. They would probably be fine in a fire truck and wind. So Mel, are you gonna check with FEMA to make sure?
Yeah, we'll make a contact and just tell them, you know, what the situation was, and if they want us to pursue it, or say, yes, you would qualify, we'll get with you, and then you can get your written estimate.
Okay,
Thank you, Leonard.
thank you.
Police Department, Sunny,
I don't have anything.
any questions for Sunny this evening?
You know, that.
Thank you, Sunny.
You're welcome.
Legal, Mr. Natburn.
I guess we've done an executive session. I'd like to ask that Mayor, Council, Mel, Greg Wright, myself, I guess Jonna, anyone else we need to enter? Probably for at least 15 minutes, maybe longer. 15 minutes, whatever. About 15 minutes.
What purpose?
Attorney-client privilege.
you have that down, John?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Turn the voice off.
Call the meeting back to order. Is there any questions for Dawn this evening? No questions for Dawn. Dawn, did you have anything else this evening? Is there any new business? Is there any old business? Yes.
Move your adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.